I'm trying to decide exactly how to start, how much information to give, because this YouTube channel is public, and I know that anyone around the world could check it out. And it's not like I'm a super private person, but some of the information about our family is really not my business to share because it's my kid's story. So I want to be respectful of that and them. Um, but I do love talking about our family. I love our family and the dynamics of our family and how we came to be. Um, so that's not a problem. It might be a smidge. I gotta take a break for a second. So the lighting is not as good here. I moved because there was this lady staring at me. I'm sure she was trying to figure out what I'm doing. Um, and I'm still super self-conscious about videoing myself. I think it's just really weird um, that I even do this. I don't know if she can see me over here. I don't even know her, so it's not like it matters. But it just makes me feel like a weirdo to be doing this. Okay. And she's probably wondering why I had to go hide in the trees. I don't know why I'm so, why I act so weird. Let's see if I can find somewhere over here. Is this better? Yeah, I think yeah, there we go. So she can't see me, and the lighting is better. Sorry I'm so awkward. Okay, so let me start at the beginning, maybe. That's a good place to start. Um, since I was a really little kid, I had always wanted to adopt children. And like my whole life, my plan was just to be a mom. I mean, I did have some periods where I really wanted to be an archaeologist or an anthropologist. Actually, as I got a little older, it kind of switched to anthropology. Um, so I had those kinds of dreams, but really, if I'm being honest, what I always wanted was just to be a mom. And I remember when I was like probably 7 years old. Seven, it would have been after my dad died. My dad died when I was 7, so somewhere around there. Um, I saw this newspaper article of this girl that was, I don't know, maybe around my age and needing a family. And they were like featuring her, like kind of like a Wednesday's Child type of a thing. And I was just struck by that. And she was like in a wheelchair, and I begged my mom to adopt her. And since my mom was a single mom with 5 kids because my dad had died, um, she was telling me there's no way they're not going to approve me, that would be too much. And she said to me that she said, Wendy, when you grow up, you can adopt your own children. And so, I mean, I kind of remember feeling like I wanted to adopt even before then, but I think that was an experience that really made me realize that it was a for real possibility and that I had a strong desire to do that. I had an aunt and uncle that did foster care, and they had a little baby that they had for a few months while they were waiting for paperwork so she could go to her family. And that was really hard for me because I just wanted um, them to keep her. I didn't want that little girl that they had named Sarah to go to another family. Hey, bud. Well, I was just because the people were over there and I felt kind of weird videoing myself. But let me just come over here and take a little pause. Oh, I had to come over here. There was a guy kind of chewing out some kids that belonged to him, probably. But also I just wanted to be involved. So this is not the best lighting, but I need to be over here so I can kind of see what's going on. Anyway, so I really, why don't you guys go play? Why don't you guys go play? I wanted my aunt and uncle to be able to keep that baby, which was funny. They had kids, and a lot of them were almost like all grown. Like I think their youngest was a teenager at the time. Um, and the family that adopted that little girl, and I'm pretty sure they renamed her like Holly. Um, they didn't have kids, or maybe they had one kid. Anyway, that kind of opened my eyes up to adoption for myself. Like I just feeling like I could feel I loved that little baby, and I didn't think any different about her than any of my other cousins or anything, and it was just really hard for her to go. So I think that just helped me also realize that there would be no difference for me whether a child was a biological child or not. And then when I was in high school, I had a good friend that had, I think they were her cousins, but her aunt and uncle adopted two kids, a little boy and a little girl that were African American, and boy, that just struck a chord with me. I don't know. I remember telling my aunt that I was going to grow up and do that, and that wasn't very common back when I was a teenager. At least it wasn't like something you see all the time to have in transracial adoption. But it just felt right to me. I knew that was my path. And then when Tim and I were engaged, I said to him that I couldn't marry him if he wasn't willing or interested in adopting. And he didn't care either way, so that worked out well. Let me just pause this for 1 sec. Anyway, sorry I have to keep pausing, but I just kind of have to keep an eye on what's happening here at the park. Usually we have this place to ourselves, and I thought with school starting down in the springs, it'd be pretty empty here today too, and it's not. It's not super crowded, but I thought it'd be a lot more quiet and private, and just not having like the greatest of vibes from the person who's here. So I need to kind of keep an eye on what is going on over there. Okay, so sorry, the lighting is just terrible. I don't want to move over to the trees because then I won't be able to see very well. I think that guy thought I was videoing him yelling at his kids, so it was kind of awkward. But I wasn't. Anyway, so when Tim and I first were married, I found out I had hypothyroidism, and then shortly after that, like we didn't ever do anything to prevent having children, and shortly after that I found I had polycystic ovarian syndrome. It's probably a little bit too much information, but it's kind of an important part of my story because I think it's 50% of women who have polycystic ovarian syndrome, which is also called PCOS, by the time they're 40 will have diabetes, most likely. And that is exactly what happened to me. So it also causes a lot of problems with your body. So we had we had some issues with pregnancy. So I have had 11 miscarriages over the years, and after my third miscarriage, I just was like, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore, because the plan was adopting wasn't like a plan B. It was just a part of the plan. But you know, most people just start out trying to have biological children. That's a really natural part of the process. Gosh, I hope I'm not sharing way too much information. But I read this article in a Good Housekeeping magazine about this lady who had adopted a little girl from China, and I just had tingles all over my body, and I just felt immediately like, this is it, it's time, we need to do adoption. We need to just not worry about the biological side of things and do adoption, go straight to adoption. So I started calling around adoption agencies, and at the time I was I guess 20. I must have been 20. We got married when I was 19, and I had had 3 miscarriages like pretty quickly. Most agencies would not even give me the time of day. They wouldn't even talk to me because they're like, you're just way too young. And we found out we couldn't adopt from China because they had very specific rules on age, and we failed miserably on that. So Tim is only about almost 4 years older than me, so he would have been like 24, almost 24. So then I heard about Vietnam, and it was a new program. They didn't really have super strict rules. The age of the parents, that they just had to be 20 years older than the child they wanted to adopt, so that was good. So we found an agency and we went that route, and we actually, like, the day I called the agency, they said, yeah, we actually have these 4 little babies that we don't have homes for yet. Would you be interested? And so I was like, okay. I didn't know anything about adoption back then. I thought it was exciting and maybe normal. I don't know. So I asked the lady if she could please tell me about the babies, because she told me to choose, and I'm like, how do you even choose? How do you do that? That's weird. But sorry, checking in again. I just heard Henry say, I think that guy's trying to kidnap us. He's not going anywhere near the kids, but he does have just kind of an interesting vibe about him. So she's describing the kids, and then she says, and there's this little girl with tons of black hair. Well, I just kind of, ding, that was the one, because my whole life people had said that when I was born I just had this shock of black hair that just sticking straight out. And so as soon as they said that, I just felt a connection, and that was our little daughter Sahara. And she did have sticking up straight black hair just like I did when I was a baby. So so we started the process, and we went through all the paperwork, and it took forever, and we had paperwork issues, and it seemed so torturous and painful. And now I laugh because it was like, I think 6 months, less than 6 months or so. Maybe, yeah, I think actually it was 6 months that we started the process and were able to go and get her. Such an easy adoption, even though we thought it was super painful. I'm gonna pause this for a second. Okay, so they left, so I can come back to where the lighting is slightly better. So we started her adoption in, actually it might have been October. Gosh, my memory is fuzzy. Okay, whatever, October, November, somewhere around there, and then we went and got her in May, so that was more than 6 months. But it was actually a really easy adoption, even though it felt horribly hard for us. And when we were in Vietnam, people were just shocked at how young we were, and even the people in our daughter's province, when we were finalizing the adoption, were teasing and pretending like we couldn't finalize her adoption because I was too young and all this weird stuff. And I was not happy about that joke. Everyone's laughing and busting up, and I was just like, not cool. I was like planning how I would escape out that room with her. Anyway, so when she was 3, we well, she would have been actually Yeah, she was 3. We started our, she was almost 3 when we started our son's adoption, also from Vietnam. And that was a really long, hard adoption that I'm not going to talk about on camera. There was just a lot of, that was Ryland's adoption from Vietnam. Horrible. It was so horrible and so hard, and some pretty scary experiences with that, with government uh, government officials and stuff, and having to get our embassy involved. And I lived in Vietnam for 3 months while I was doing his adoption, but we were able to finally get him home, and it took us, I think his adoption was a year, and we had actually been working on adopting like almost 6 months before that. So we had a situation where well, I don't know, it's kind of hard. We were told some stories, and since our facilitator wasn't 100% honest, I don't know what was true and what wasn't. So before we even were dealing with Ryland's situation, we had some weirdness and some hardness. So that adoption, like from start to finish, was like 18 months, but the part with Ryland was more like a year. And it was just scary, and just a pure miracle that we got him out of Vietnam. And I know that was just a blessing from God. And we had a lot of people praying for us, and I truly believe that those prayers were what helped and made it work. So after that adoption, we were like, we're not adopting for a long time. We didn't have any money, and I was burnt out. It was just really stressful, and we had, the perfect family, a daughter and a son. What more do you need? Well, we always wanted a big family, so actually eventually when Ryland was 5, we did a domestic adoption of our daughter Claire, and so I was able to see her be born. Tim wasn't able to be in there. He was just outside the door because his Claire's birth mother didn't want him in there, which I don't blame her. I wouldn't have either. Even though he's just a wonderful man, he was basically a stranger. So we didn't know if she was a boy or a girl, so he was listening outside of the door to hear the announcement. So I was the first person to know she was a girl. That was fun. And when she was, well, actually we were driving home from the hospital bringing her home, and Tim's like, that was amazing, I want to do that right now again, let's do it again. Like, he wanted to sign up with our agency like that same week. I was like, you are crazy. No. So after a couple months of him really pushing, and he kept saying, I just really feel like we're supposed to have a boy, and maybe even a couple of boys, and he just pushed and pushed, which is rare. Guys don't usually push, and he's really never ever pushed in any of the adoptions except our next one. So when Claire was 2 months old, we started looking at programs and agencies, and we felt really drawn to Ethiopia. People are always like, how do you do it? How do you know? Where do you go? And I have to say that God, He directs you. He totally has a hand in your life if you want Him to, and sometimes even I think if you don't want Him to, I think His hand is in your life because He cares about all of us. But He directs you, and like I couldn't go anywhere without hearing about Ethiopia, and it was the weirdest thing. Like, I never heard about Ethiopia before that, but while we decided that would probably be where we adopted next, it was like everywhere. And so we signed up with an agency, and they had like these videos of kids that you could you watch the video, and you could, if you felt a connection to certain children, you could ask about them and stuff. And so it was funny because Tim and I were totally connected to different kids. So he fell in love with his brother-sister set, and I didn't feel it at all. I was like, no, I really feel like it's supposed to be 2 boys if we're doing this. And so we asked about those kids because that's what Tim wanted to do. And I can't remember exactly what happened, but I think they were saying that they had already been chosen by a family from another country. It was like somewhere in Europe. So we were like, okay, fine. So we go back to the video, and I was particularly drawn to these two little boys. They weren't brothers, they were just two separate little boys, and Tim was not at all. Like, he's like, those are not our kids. And then we also heard about two little boys from a different country. It was in Africa still, but I don't remember where, like maybe Liberia or something. And so we prayed about it, and it didn't feel right. So then we saw another sibling set of a girl and a boy on that video from Ethiopia, and so Tim was like, well, these are the ones. These are the ones if the first set's gone. And I was like, okay, I still don't really feel confirmation either way, I guess you could say. But I wasn't opposed to it, and they were cute, and I think I was just a little more taken back because I kept thinking, boys, it's two boys, it's not a girl and a boy. Well, I was wrong. So we did go ahead and apply to adopt these two kids. That's Bethlehem and Kenyon. And Bethlehem is really close in age to our oldest Sahara, like they're like 5 months apart. And Kenyon was a couple years younger than Ryland. So, it was kind of interesting. It didn't take very long before we were matched with them, because when we asked about them, they were like, yeah, they're available, and we were matched immediately. So as soon as that happened, the bonding started. I started feeling it. I started feeling like our kids. And I think we had been into the adoption for about a month or so when our agency said, hey, I know you guys have been looking for two boys, and I know that didn't end up happening, but we have this little baby boy who's in their orphanage. He's actually in Kenyon's orphanage because they separated the kids by ages. And we don't have a family for him. I just don't know if you wanted to add him onto your paperwork. So that's how we got Ezra. So, sorry, I'm just checking out what's going on at the park. So we added him onto our paperwork. It was a nominal fee to do so, and we were already doing the paperwork, so it wasn't a big deal. And we already approved, I think, I think our home study had been approved for like 4 kids or something like that. So it's easy just to put him on there, and put him on there. So their adoption was probably like one of our easiest adoptions besides our domestic ones. It was just smooth sailing the whole way. We turned our paperwork in, we got approved on time, and so we started their adoption in January, and in September we went and picked them up. So we went from having 2 kids to 6 kids in a 9-month period. And it was crazy sauce. I mean, when we brought the kids home from Ethiopia, it was terrible. And Sahara and Ryland had scarlet fever that they had gotten from some cousins at a family reunion while we were gone in Ethiopia, picking up the kids. And there was sibling rivalry, and there was 2 babies that were 2 months apart. And oh boy, I don't even know how he survived that time period besides the grace of God and my mother. It was just horrible. I remember one day calling my mom and being like, I can't do this, we have to give the kids back, and her just being like, I am coming over, calm down, it's gonna be fine, you're tired. So she helped us a ton, and it was just so hard. And we started homeschooling shortly after the kids from Ethiopia came home. So that was in February of 2005 we started homeschooling, and they had come home in September of 2004, and it was just best. We just had so many issues with public school, and it was just better to be at our own pace, learning what we needed to, when we needed to, and having our own schedule. And so that was a huge blessing. So this is getting really long, so I hope this isn't too boring for you guys, but to get the whole story, and it's going to take a little bit more time. So we're at 6 kids, and we were like, okay, this is a great family, we're done, there's no more, we're already bigger than most families in America, actually probably a good portion of the world, maybe, I don't know. And then there came a day when I just knew we were missing a little girl. I knew it. Tim did not like it. He didn't think it was right. He thought we needed to stick to 6. And it's interesting, like, we went on this vacation in July of 2005. Is that right? Must be right. Yeah, crazy. And I could not shake the feeling that we had a little girl. It just wouldn't leave me. And I had a miserable time on that trip because all I could think about was her. And the whole trip, we talked about family size, and Tim kept saying, you know, no, we can't. This is the perfect family, blah 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 blah. And all I could think about was, I know there's a little girl. So by the time the trip was over, it was like, okay, don't even think about this anymore. He doesn't want to, and you have to both be on board, and life is hard, and what are you thinking? You're crazy. You just haven't even had the kids home barely. No, they hadn't even been home a year at that point. Excuse me. What? And I'm just gonna quickly say that on that trip, when I was obsessed and knew a daughter was missing, that's when our daughter was born. She was born that week. So it's really curious. It's just like, I can't, to me, I'm like, I cannot deny that there is a God, because I have seen way too many things in my life that are not coincidences. There is a divine being up there who cares about us and is involved in our lives and stuff. Anyway, so we didn't talk about anything, even though I just really felt like we were missing a daughter. And then it was like in March of 2006 that I finally was able to get my husband to see that, yeah, I think a daughter's missing. And interestingly enough, we first had our daughter Esther referred to us, and she's just a few months older than Claire and Ezra. Hi guys, back from the temple. Those good looking kids. How was it?
Great.
Good, awesome.
Amazing.
So I will have to probably come back to this. We'll pick back up at the Haitian adoptions, because we're gonna have our picnic, and I'm gonna video that. So I'm gonna have to figure out. I think I'm gonna have to do these as 2 separate videos. Otherwise, it's gonna be a gigantic what I ate video. So I don't know if I'll be even able to get this video up today, but I'll try to. Okay, so I'm gonna see you later, and I'll pick up back at the Haitian adoptions. Okay, I'm gonna get back. Just I have a few more minutes. We're gonna make our picnic lunch in a little bit. I guess the kids kind of want to just sit still for a minute. Okay, so back to the Haitian adoption. So we found out about Esther, and she is 5 months older than Claire and 7 months older than Ezra, and super super adorable. She's so cute. So we, you know, yes, we're adopting her, and then shortly after that we decided to add another girl to our paperwork. We found out about a little baby that we named Ruth, and she actually passed away while we were doing the adoption process. So she had meningitis and she passed away. That was really, really, really hard, especially because we never actually had her with us. So I think a lot of people were wondering why we were so sad. Maybe, I don't know. It was a very difficult time. But we were referred Tally after Ruth passed, and Tally is our daughter who was born the week of our trip, where I could not stop thinking about how we were missing a girl. So kind of cool. And their adoptions were horrible. Horrible, horrible, horrible. Haitian adoption is like the worst. I don't know if it still is, but we started in 2006. Tally came home 2.5 years after we started her adoption, and Esther 3 years. And it was horrible. We would go and visit them all the time. Like, I think it was like every 4 months or something, we would try and go visit them while we were doing their adoption. Although we didn't go every 4 months. We couldn't afford to do that. But we did go, yeah, I think a couple times a year we would go out and visit them. It was so horrible because you bond with them for a week and they love you and they think everything's great, and then you drop them back off at the orphanage and they are crying and you can hear them as you're driving away. You can hear them screaming. I still don't know if that was the best thing. I think that helped us because we could see them and feel like they were still doing well, and I don't know, but I don't know if that was good for them. I don't know, but then again, we were able to get Esther moved to Tally's orphanage, which was way better because the orphanage Esther was in was not the best, and Tally's was actually pretty good for a Haitian orphanage. So that was a huge blessing that we were able to do that because we went there. I don't know though, but that was just a really difficult time, and Tally adjusted pretty easily. Esther really struggled. She had severe um, um, developmental delays. I mean, when we brought her home, she was 6. Basically, she turned 6 a few months after we brought her home, and she weighed 26 pounds, and nobody had ever heard her talk. And it took her a while to talk when she came home, and she could hardly walk. She couldn't barely walk upstairs. She had to hold on to the stair rail to pull herself upstairs. We saw her teach herself how to jump after she came home. Like, it was the cutest thing ever. Like, the look on her face, like, whoa, what just happened? You could tell she had never experienced that before. It was just, I don't even know what to say about that whole experience. It was difficult, amazing, interesting, but we had really serious concerns about Esther and her development, and we didn't know what her potential would be. And now she is like totally normal and tall and healthy and intelligent, and um, just far surpassed our what we thought would ever happen for her. So it's been a fun transformation to witness. We feel very blessed to be her parents and all of our kids' parents. But anyway, so then we thought things were good. 8 kids. Even I was like, we're good. We're good. But then I had an experience, a special experience, that told me we had a baby boy. And I told Tim, and he was really like, no, this is not happening. We're done. Nobody would ever choose us, because I knew that our child missing was a newborn boy. So for a couple of years, it was a couple of years, nothing happened, obviously. And then we had a little miracle happen where we came into some money. And here Tim is planning all the great things we're going to do with this money. And I said, no, that money's for our baby. I just knew it. I knew that it was almost the exact amount we needed to do an adoption. Pretty much it was. Almost like to the very dollar, practically. It was so, I shouldn't say so weird, because Heavenly Father does things in curious ways. But that was in February of 2011. Called up an agency a few days after we found out we were getting that money, and he was born in May. Sorry, I just have to collect myself. But he was born on my grandma's birthday. And she's really special to me. And Henry is like my little angel, my little perfect baby. And we didn't get to see him born. There was just some miscommunication. We were supposed to. Hold on. So we were supposed to go see him be born, but she kind of came a little too early. That was kind of part of the problem. And then we had to wait for our agency to get there. We couldn't go there by ourselves with his birth mother. That was just their policy, which makes sense. But it was interesting because we were waiting all through the night for news, and like at 5:30 in the morning, Tim sat up and he was like, he was born. He was just born. And he was. We got a phone call right after that he was born, and to come to the hospital, and so we did, and it was just awesome. Just the whole experience was just incredible. And I was able to have a hotel, I always call it a hotel room, hospital room, and be in the hospital with him, which that was my first time ever being able to do that. So it was really cool. And when we went into the nursery, I knew exactly who he was. I went straight to him, and I just knew he was our baby. He was the baby I had had a special experience with, a spiritual experience with. And Tim had his hand just hanging over the edge of the little bassinet thing, and Henry, they had just put that goopy stuff in his eyes, and he reached right up and just grabbed Tim's hands and squeezed on tight. And I don't know, it was interesting. Like that whole day, he kept trying to open his eyes and hold his head up and look around. It was just like he knew we belonged together and didn't want to miss a minute of it. It was just really special. And he's just a delight. I love that little boy so much. So anyway, after Henry was born, I felt prompted that we should do the foster care classes, and we did that. And we kind of thought we would be doing, excuse me. Okay, sorry, I'm having to stop and parent. Anyway, foster care classes, I felt like we should do those, and so we did. And they were like, I don't know, like 3 months of classes, which were really great. I learned a lot from those classes. We were approved for 5 kids because at the time we had a huge house, and would I be able to do that? So then they, after the classes, they offered us a sibling set of 5. Huh. And we did not feel right about it. They were all really little kids. Like, I think the oldest one was like 5 years old. They were like step down kids, and we just kind of felt like it wasn't right. And then we started to kind of second guess the whole foster care thing anyway. And so then my friend told me about this kid, and it was Matthias, and we ended up adopting him. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about him because he's always been a very, very difficult child. We adopted him through a program called Second Chance, where he had been adopted previously, and it wasn't working out, so the family dissolved the adoption. Actually, our last 3 kids came from that program. Matthias has made some really terrible and illegal decisions, and he no longer lives in our home, and he won't be able to live in our home. He's 16 now, but so I'm just going to kind of gloss over that whole situation. But I still believe he was supposed to be in our family. I know that God put him in our home for a reason. I still kind of struggle with why, but I don't understand all the ways of God, and I know that Matt had a hard life too, and sometimes when you have a hard life, especially from birth like he did, you make choices that are just foolish and dangerous. So he's getting the help he needs, and we're still involved. He just can't live at home, and legally he has some things he has to take care of anyway, so it's not really even our choice. But anyway, so 6 months after Matt joined our family, we found out about Oscar, also from that same program, and brought him home. He was almost 5, and so Matthias was born in China, Oscar was born in Georgia, and then I'm trying to remember how many years it was afterwards. So 3 years after we brought Oscar home, we found out about Aaliyah from that same program, and we're able to get her into our home pretty quickly, but the actual adoption took a long time, like almost 2 years. It was really crazy, and it was just, we had 2 states involved. We had just some other issues that came about. So we finalized her adoption in January, and I guess so it was like a year and a half actually that it took. And so that is how we have 12 kids from all different places, different ages, and it's awesome. We have a lot of fun. We've been tremendously blessed with our beautiful children. I couldn't have handpicked a better family for us. And obviously we have our ups and downs just like everybody else, and some different little unique situations that come about because of some of our kids' pasts. But just really, these are just amazing kids. And my people always say this, which makes me super mad. Super mad. I hate when people say, aren't they lucky? Oh, they're so lucky to have you. And it makes me like really like raging mad because no, this is not about them being lucky. I mean, if people want to think that, whatever, but they shouldn't say it because it's really rude to our kids for one, and it's not true. Tim and I are the lucky ones. We are the lucky people to get to be these kids' parents, and I've learned so much from these kids. My life never could have been happy without them. I never could have had this strong, strong joy and pride that I feel for these kids. They are just, they're awesome. I'm so grateful for our family, and people keep saying, "Are you guys done? Are you done?" And I've said we were done for so many times that I can't say for certain, but I really feel like we are. We've just had a lot going on in the last year, and I'm 44 and Tim's 48, and we're getting old, and we have 2 grandkids, and it just kind of feels like, you know, the grandkids are here, and it's time to finish raising up our kids and enjoy the grandparent years. So yeah, I think we are so fully blessed by God with these children, and I don't believe he has any more blessings for us. I'll say it like that. But I did tell God one time that if he had more children to send us, we wouldn't say no. That was a few years ago, and that was actually shortly after I said that, shortly as in probably maybe a year. That's about a year later, that's when Aaliyah came into our family. So maybe he was testing me, I don't know, because we're still working on her behavior and adjustment, and she's tries my patience daily. So I think that's another reason why I'm thinking, I think we're good. We're good. We're good. We're blessed. We're good. I can't imagine my life any other way. So that's our family story. That's it. Yeah, and all along the way, we've had 11 miscarriages. I never rounded that up or finished talking about that, but we have done all of the medical testing possible to find out why, and there's apparently nothing wrong with me or my husband, but together. So I guess we haven't done the genetic testing, which our doctor has told us we should, but there's no point in that because we literally don't care about well, it's not that we don't care, but it's not critical to us to have a biological child. Um, most of our pregnancies were surprises. The first 3 definitely weren't. We tried really hard for those, but I would say probably the rest were pretty much surprises. We weren't trying to get pregnant and stuff. And so in the last pregnancy we had was a little girl, and she had a chromosomal defect that was pretty serious. And so we don't want to spend the money on genetic testing. I just tell people we make Martian babies, and they die. So that's maybe just a really irreverent way to explain it. But we're not genetically compatible, and it's okay. It's okay. We don't have to do that. We don't have to do that, especially we're getting old. So it's not like we would anyway right now. But even all the over all the years, it was not a priority of ours. Our goal was to have the children God wanted us to have, and we do. So that is our story, and we are blessed and happy, and our kids are like hilarious and talented, and they're just terrific. So I probably should have had some pictures to show people of my kids, but I don't, because I'm at the park. But maybe someday I'll go through and kind of do some of that, just show some pictures or something. But it's our story. Hopefully it wasn't too boring or too much information or too awkward or whatever. So yeah, feel free to comment, and if you have other questions, at some point I probably will do a little video about why we homeschool and what brought us to homeschooling. But really, go ahead and ask questions if you'd like to know more about our family. So hope you have a great day, and I'll check in later when well, I won't check in later on this video. This will be the end of this video, but I will be doing my food stuff the rest of the day. I just had to edit slightly about something on our adoption video. I was 21, not 20, when we did our first adoption of our daughter Sahara. So that was in 1995, so I was 21, and my husband was 24. And I turned 22 right before we got her. So I was still really young, but not as young as I was remembering. So I just had to clarify on that. So this is our original 6 kids. We got Sahara, Claire, Bethlehem, Ezra, Ryland, and Kenyon. This is a picture of Ezra when we first started adopting him. He was extremely tiny. So this is a picture of Ezra and Claire when they're little. We call them our twins. They don't like it. There's Claire when she was a new baby, and me. And Claire. Here's the 3 boys, and that's Ezra in Ethiopia. Here's some pictures of us visiting Tally and Esther in Haiti. This is Tally, that's Esther. So we visited with them a lot because their adoptions took so long. Did I pause it? No, I didn't pause it. Goodness. So here's a picture of us when Henry was a baby. So we got our first 9 kids in this picture. And this is Henry. These are all his baby pictures. There's Tally with announcing that she was going to be a big sister. She was super excited for us to adopt him. But here's little baby Henry. And here's Oscar when we first brought him home. Just a little guy at the lake with Tally as his buddy. And there he is. That was on his at his birthday party when he turned 5.
Why do we humble?
And here's another one of Oscar at his 5th birthday party.
Except for Aaliyah.
Here's a Mother's Day picture of me with my kids. Of course, I'm missing a couple of them in here. And this is a picture of Aaliyah. So there you have it.